Here we are with a revamped and revitalized look into how to play each of the nations. This video is going to cover the Earth Nation. In my opinion, one of the easiest nations to play. It has aggressive potential, but more so defensive late game potential, with the power to win the game in one turn via a 2-card combination once they hit tier 3. They are very hard to attack from increased defensive stats courtesy of their mountains, and have supreme building material economy and discounted defensive fortifications. So your opponent isn't going to really want to go at you. Couple that with what is, my opinion, the strongest tier 1 ability in the game, Plate Tectonics. You can jump on your opponent and get a finishing blow on them in the opening turns while still having the defensive prowess to defend on the other side of the board. They're a force to be reckoned with. Let's take a dive into their other abilities and see how they tackle the board. We are looking at Earth's abilities, and in my opinion, Earth is a top 3 element in the game, and really always has been. You have discounted defensive fortifications, and mountains are going to give you extra building materials, which is a resource that a lot of elements actually hunger for. It seems like there's always food on the board, but building materials are few and far between sometimes. And so Earth is looking for mountain-heavy corners. If I can get 2, that's great. If I get 3 or 4, that's ludicrous that it didn't actually get banned in the ban stage, and enjoy your win. But Earth, in its abilities, it doesn't have that many choices. And that's because it's really fallen into a pretty standard formula for Earth. We've got several abilities here, and there's a few flex spots, but not really. Because we've got a free mountain available in tier 1. We're always going to take that. If I've got 2, now I've got 3. If I've got 1, now I've got 2. We've got tectonic plates, which in my opinion is the most powerful tier 1 ability in the game. And I've considered nerfing it so many times, but then you take away really the entirety of Earth's identity. Switch the positioning of 2 adjacent tiles, including all of your structures and units. Your general must be present on one of these tiles. This is why the Earth General, all eyes are on him in the opening turns. They want to know where he's going. Is he going on the short side for full aggression? Because if we're going for full aggression, if my general is sitting right here on this desert, and I've got opponents, and they put all their resources into defending this lake, it is irrelevant because I'm going to switch the 2 tiles. The desert and the lake will swap, and then I can attack the mountain behind it. They've dedicated all of their resources into defending this tile, and we're just going around it. And you might say, well, isn't that very counterintuitive because didn't you just bring the enemy closer? Yes, you're right, but I'm also 1 turn ahead. I have the initiative. I am attacking them. So great stuff there. It's incredibly powerful. You can do so many things with it. You can bring a star tile closer to you. You can bring the temple closer to you, or a landmark, or a boss tile. There's so many uses for it, but of course, the big play kill potential is always there. And so the beauty of it is you position your general aggressively in the early turns, and if the big play doesn't happen, that's fine. If the general ends up getting smashed and sent back to your capital, that's fine. You just get to use it later on when you have more units at your disposal. So these first 2 abilities are phenomenal. The only reason why I could see you not taking this is if you already started with like 2 or 3 in the first place, well then you don't need any others. Or not 2 or 3, 3 or 4, then maybe you don't need any more. Then your final tier 1, it really is a toss-up between all of these. We've got stone defenses, which is going to be an impassable wall. So it's just a straight-up stall turn. I would say it's the weakest of these 3. I'm almost never taking this. I can either get 2 instances of 2 free defensive fortifications, or on 1 tile, I get 3 free defensive fortifications on it, allowing it to be more strongly defended than really most tiles on the board. So if I'm really playing it and if I'm managing building materials correctly, then I'm going to go with this, something that gives me an advantage that is not typically possible. If I'm in the 10-10 position and I've got an aggressive short side neighbor, then construction crew is going to be the better choice for me because I can defend tiles on that short side pretty readily. But extensive fortifications is typically the stronger option, I would say. Then we get to tier 2. And you've got some good situational matchups here. One that you're almost always going to take is Piercing the Mantle. Because our mountains are already producing 1 extra building material, piercing the mantle with a resource building on that tile is going to allow that mountain to produce twice as many resources, aka 12 building materials a turn from 1 tile. That is huge over the course of a few turns. And why is that so huge? Well, it's because of our other bread and butter card. We're making so many building materials. It'd be awesome if we could train soldiers with those building materials. And here it is, Eating Rocks. And you can use this twice. and it doesn't actually limit itself on how many barracks you're using it from. You just say, I'm using it for this turn, and I can purchase soldiers for building materials this turn. If I've got 5 barracks and I've got 50 BM, I could train 5 armies, and that's only one use of our 2 uses for eating rocks. That's very, very powerful. The other main tier 2 that you're going to take is Summon Citadel, because it does have implications later in the game. Super powerful card. If you've got opponents that aren't really good at swinging over defensive structures, this is a fantastic card. But something else to consider is if you've got matchups like Metal or Blood, then I would strongly encourage you to take a look at this card. Your defensive fortifications are free almost. They're next to nothing. You're making so much building materials, and they only cost 2 apiece. So for 2 building materials, you can eliminate a Metal or a Blood defensive fortification that is worth way more to those opponents and have greater implications on them. So a great counter card, especially against Blood. A great counter card against Blood. And then you've got a great card, but it does require you to go with a more aggro approach, and this is going to tie into some abilities that I'd like to put into Earth's kit a little bit later on from now, but it doesn't really have a place in today's metagame because the other options that are available are simply better. And so these are going to be your 3 primary tier 2s, and we go on to their tier 3s. Tier 3, once again, their quest, not the best. It is a one accomplishment, you win the game. It's very difficult to do. And the reason why is because everything else is so powerful. But what are we playing for this whole game? Well, the best ability we have in our entire kit is Spare Rooms. For every structure that we own, defensive fortifications, resource buildings, barracks, we get a free soldier. And those can spawn at 3 locations: your capital, your general, or your citadel tile, courtesy of Summon Citadel. And so that is going to allow you to encompass a bunch of pivotal points on the board. Maybe it's star tiles, maybe it's bosses to finish them off and win the game, or just defend against an enemy's attack. But really, what Earth's primary win conditions are going to be is it's typically going to be 10 armies, courtesy of Spare Rooms. And then aside from that, it's usually 3-star tiles or 50-50, but they have great boss killing potential as well with all these soldiers that you're spawning with Spare Rooms. And so that's what I mean by the 1-turn win potential. You spawn all these soldiers, and you can take all 3-star tiles if you wanted to, or you could potentially kill 2 bosses with it. And that's just one tier 3. Other tier 3s, you got a situational matchup with Tyr's Revenge based on the lore that is written over Earth. We can convert an owned volcano into a mountain tile and eliminate all soldiers on it, so it's a really good matchup against fire or magma. But the generic ability for this is your general eliminates up to 3 armies on an adjacent tile, but the general goes back to the capital after that. So just a great soldier killer to stop an ability there. Our other tier 3s, really pick your poison. Terraforming. With every mountain we gain, we add 1 to our defensive dice roll. We just become that much harder to attack. We remove all defensive fortifications upon attacking with our general. This could be really great in the Metal or Blood matchups, removing those castles and those stronger defensive fortifications. Or every tile that we take, whether we purchase it or claim it by combat, we get a barracks, a resource building, and 2 defensive fortifications on it. More buildings for our Spare Rooms. Pick your poison. Typically, I would say you typically go with this, in my opinion. I would say there's way more matchups at this stage of the game where defensive fortifications could make the difference in a nation that doesn't get any dice roll bonuses when they're attacking, typically. So that's, in my opinion, the best. But really, I don't think you can go wrong with any of these 3 options. And so those are your primary abilities that you're going to take as the Earth Nation. Enjoy your wins.